Now, let's dive into the potential or proposed problems of both Ethereum and Solana. And I will do a little bit of FUD control on these to help people really wrap their heads around what's truly happening here. The proposed problems, I think, of Ethereum and Solana are narratives that I think are being built by the opposing ecosystem. And so again, Maxis will double down on these, whereas I'm going to try to peel back the layers and help you understand what's truly going on here. So the first is that Ethereum fees are too expensive. And if you use the layer one, the Ethereum L1, then of course, yes, they are. $20, $30, $40, $50 to transact makes no sense on blockchain. And that's what they currently are on Ethereum, and they will probably always be. But the reason why this FUD or this problem doesn't make any sense is Ethereum L1 is not meant for humans to transact. And so we aren't meant to do things on there. Apps are not meant to be on there. The reason that humans are on there and apps are on there now is because L2s just came along, less than 2 years ago. And so we are moving everything. We are bridging everything over to the L2s. Just some people haven't done that yet. And then also institutions, whales, people with millions and millions of dollars that don't need cheap fees, that just want decentralization to the max. They want max security for their assets. They'll use Ethereum L1 and they'll pay $20 fees and they don't care. But all of us who are here airdrop farming and trying to make our first bit of money, it doesn't make sense for us, but that's not what the Ethereum L1 is for. And so the fees are expensive. They're going to stay expensive. And that's the purpose of Ethereum, because that's what helps it have its economic security. What we are meant to do is use the L2s. That's the whole roadmap and idea of Ethereum. And I think people just haven't wrapped their heads around that. So fees are meant to be expensive on Ethereum. It's the L2s that you use where they aren't expensive. And so that brings me to my next problem on Ethereum, which is people are saying that layer twos fragment liquidity, they break composability, and bridging is a big problem. And so currently, yeah, it's sort of an issue. There are 50 to 100 L2s right now. Most people have assets on one or the other. You got to bridge from one to the other. The bridging is not great. I'm first to say this. I say it all the time. But DC Investor, who's been around this space for a long time, his tweet here that I have up on the screen just says, I think many of you have incorrectly faded Ethereum L2s and what they will eventually mean for Ethereum and for ETH. Because you believe how you use this tech today is how most people use it tomorrow. But in my opinion, it mostly won't be people transacting on L1s at all. We got to understand that one, bridging will get abstracted away. It won't ever be an issue. It just is right now. It's almost fixed, but we're still working on it. But eventually you'll just move from L2 to L2 and you won't even have to think about it. It just will be abstracted away. You actually won't even know you're moving from L2 to L2. You'll just go to buy something in one app because you'll use the app itself, and your liquidity underneath will just move underneath for you. You won't have to do anything. You won't have to think about that. You won't have a wallet where you're looking at what's on Optimism, what's on Arbitrum. It'll just all happen for you. It'll just completely be abstracted away. We're even close to that now. And then that means liquidity won't be an issue and it won't be fragmented. And same with composability. Composability is not even a problem right now. For example, we have an on-chain gift shop where you can earn certain things depending on things that you mint. And right now, whether you mint them on Base, Polygon, Arbitrum, whatever, it all works in the same UX. You don't have to move things around. It can read what's on what chain. So it's quite simple, actually. And I don't think it's as broken as what people think. I'll talk more about L2s in just a second. But the way that we use blockchain now is not how we're going to use it in the future. We won't actually be interacting with the chain like we do today. Most people, we won't be airdrop farming and doing all these things and trying to move liquidity from one app to another. And it just, all that stuff will just happen for us. And so I don't think that how we use today is a good indicator of what will happen 1, 2, 3 years from now. So that's a really important one. Next, it's too confusing with so many L2s. So a lot of Solana people will say there's too many L2s. And so it's confusing for developers. And so they'll just go to Solana instead because there's just one Solana. This is a complete false narrative that Solana people will make up, because the fact that there are many L2s makes it even harder for people to then decide to go to Solana, because people aren't looking and going, okay, do I build on an L2 or do I build on Solana? They're going, do I build on Solana? Do I build on Arbitrum? Do I build on Optimism? Do I build on Polygon? Which they're all just execution layers. There's no like, I'm going to either go in the L2 ecosystem or I'm going to go on Solana. And so if I go in the L2 ecosystem, I have to then decide between 50 of them. It's just, which chain do I want to build on? And that is going to be 50 to, however many options there are to build on, right? And so if 99% of those options are L2s on top of Ethereum, that's very bullish Ethereum, because no matter what Ethereum wins, doesn't mean every L2 wins, but it's not like it's like either L2s or Solana. It's one of the many execution layers. And this is why I say I don't think Ethereum is competing with Solana so much anymore. It's Solana competing with L2s. And so I just think that's a very false narrative. Again, I don't think people are deciding between which L2 because they only want an L2. It's just which execution layer is best. And that could be immutable, it could be Optimism, could be Solana, whatever. So I think it's a false narrative. And I think the more L2s, it actually becomes even probably more difficult for Solana because there's just too many options outside of Solana. The other one is that Sol's tech is better. Solana's tech is better. And so why would anyone build on Ethereum now? If it's better, if it's faster, it's cheaper, why would anyone build on Ethereum? And what people are understanding is that fast and cheap isn't the only thing that matters. There are other features that matter when you're building on a platform. That could be decentralization, that could be functionalities, that could be different features, that could be stuff like KYC, could be many different things, right? And so we looked just this past week, and Flipkart, which is, they have 350 million users. They're basically the Amazon of India in terms of like an e-commerce platform. They are launching a on-chain. And what are they doing? They're launching L2. Now, look, they know Solana's faster, Solana's cheaper, but they want to build their own ecosystem on chain, not an app, but an ecosystem, which means they probably want others to build on top, and they want to generate revenue if others build on top of their ecosystem. They want to control the UX. They want to control more things. And so building on an L2 for them makes sense. If they build on Solana, they don't get to control any of that. Solana controls that, right? I think we're going to see more platform-like businesses use L2s rather than building on a chain, than an L1, because they have more functionality. So your Amazons, your Apples, et cetera, they're going to have an L2 or their own chain, but probably an L2 rather than building on an existing L1, okay? Even if you want just like a reason to show, hey, this is actually true and it's working, Coinbase just today launched another L2. Now this is one for institutions, so it needs different functionality than what Base offers. It's probably going to have some KYC stuff and whatever else. But regardless, it didn't launch as in Solana just because it's fast and cheap. It launched as another L2 because they know they can make revenues from it and they have more control over it. So I think a lot of people are just missing the idea of what L2s really are, which again, L2s are becoming very easy, very cheap to create and to launch. And it gives you functionality in your own chain without having to worry about figuring out security and a token and all that stuff. And so it's a game changer. And I think L2s, there's going to be many, many, many of them. Again, the bridging will get abstracted away. But more than that, most people just won't even move from one chain to another. They'll just use an app, not a chain. They'll think that they're using an app, just like we use Spotify today. They might just go and use Sound, which is on Optimism, and just like they might purchase some stuff with their credit card or with crypto in there, and it just stays there. They don't need to worry about bridging. And then they'll go elsewhere and they'll, again, purchase with their credit card over on another one. And that's how the internet currently works today too. So there's the ability to bridge, but I just don't think many people are going to use it or need to use it. So we got to stop thinking about how we use it today. It's going to be much more easier to take money from anywhere and put it into any app in the future. So those are the fundamental proposed problems on Ethereum that I just think most of those are just completely untrue. Let's flip over to Solana and look at the proposed problems over there. If you have listened to an Ethereum maxi, maybe even a Bitcoin maxi, they say that Solana's chain shuts down frequently. This is just completely false. It was true last year, and more even year before that. It did shut down a couple times. They've been working to figure that out. The tech has improved. Again, it launched in 2020. And so of course it's going to have some issues in terms of the technology in its first couple of years. Ethereum and Bitcoin both also had issues. And so to say that it's a shitty chain because it had issues just makes no sense. But you can look on this site here, and Solana has not had any downtime since, I think it's February maybe. Yeah, February of 2023. So we're almost a year with absolutely no downtime, no issues at all with the chain, which is quite impressive. And I think we'll continue to see that stay with 100% uptime moving forward. They have fixed those problems. So I don't think this is still an issue like most people would say. Solana is not decentralized. That's another one that people will say. And look, the validator numbers of Solana are lower and the requirements to run a validator are higher in terms of costs. But the thing that Solana is betting on that I think people are missing is Moore's Law, which is basically that hardware becomes more performant, so faster. And I think it's something like every 2 years it doubles, which also means it then becomes cheaper to have the previous amount of GPUs or CPUs or whatever speeds that you need every 2 years. And so I think over time, the hardware requirements for Solana will go down in terms of price, and it'll also become more efficient at the same time. And so I think decentralization is not, even now, is not really an issue for Solana. And I think it has a path to get even better and better over time. Again, I just think this is people who are too far gone on the Bitcoin maxi side where everything has to be 100%, secure and decentralized. I don't think that's necessary for everything. And so I think that's not an issue for Solana. It's just something that people continue to sit on because, in 2021, it was very centralized. It's been fixed and is continuing to be fixed on an ongoing basis. Okay, the last one, and this one still is definitely an issue for Solana, which is that the tokenomics of Solana are not sustainable. Currently, this one is true, but I do see sort of a path for Solana to fix this, which is Solana's inflation rate right now is about 7%, and then it doesn't make a lot of revenue from its fees. I can pull this up here. Currently, Solana is bringing in about $163,000 per day in its fee revenue. The problem is that because its inflation is 7%, and that's what it's paying out its validators to run the network, its expenses are over $10 million a day, right? So if there's a massive hole here, if we look at earnings, I mean, they are, what are we at here? $12 million to, let's see, what are we at? 11 million. Like, we're on a weekly basis, they're losing a lot of money in terms of its tokenomics, okay? It's in the hole every single day by millions of dollars, which is obviously a really big problem because it's essentially inflating its currency even worse than something like the US dollar. And so is there a future for that? The thing that I would say is, one, its inflation schedule is programmed to go down over time. And by 2030, it should reach about 1%. So that really significantly reduces the expenses. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to happen exactly by 2030, but that's their proposed decrease in its inflation. By the way, Ethereum, Bitcoin all had the same thing. They all had higher inflation in the beginning, and that will go down over time. This is normal for any company, like any startup. They get funding, right? They had subsidized the costs of whatever it is, user acquisition, et cetera, in the early stages until it can generate enough revenue. And so Solana basically needs to 25 to 50x its revenues. So the question is, can it get 25 to 50x more transactions? And I think it can. I don't see why not. Like, it's still very, very early days in Solana, and it's very, very early days in Web3. And so I can see this continuing to go up and up and up. Now, remember, these numbers are, that doesn't work, but these numbers are going up because the price of SOL went up, not necessarily because there's more transactions, but over time there will be. And so I think that they will find a balance at some point, but we could be years away from that. So is that a problem? Sure, it's a problem for now. But again, we don't yet know how much sustainable tokenomics is even going to matter in these sort of ecosystems. It's something just very different than we're used to. By the way, if we compare that to Ethereum is very profitable in its tokenomic structure, in upwards of millions of dollars a day. That is profitable. So it's a very big difference. Thank you for listening to Web3 Academy, your one trusted source to capitalize on the next big phase of the internet. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it and subscribe or follow so that you don't miss the next one. While you're at it, there's a link in the description for our free newsletter where we provide timely and relevant Web3 insights so you can confidently build and invest in Web3. Make sure to subscribe today. One final note. This podcast is for educational purposes only, and nothing we say is financial advice. Crypto and Web3 are risky, and you should never invest more than you're willing to lose. Thank you, friends, and see you in the next one.